Now that we've been over EC2 in a lot more detail, it's time for another guided quiz. So here's question 1. Dwight has been tasked with testing application environments in AWS and has chosen EC2 instances to host his application. He has instantiated a t2.small instance running Amazon Linux 2. He has created and downloaded a key pair for the instance and is attempting to SSH into the instance using the key pair, but is getting the error, network error, connection timed out. What is the most likely issue? Is it 1, he hasn't downloaded the key pair properly? 2, the instance hasn't finished booting up? 3, his instance isn't large enough to support SSH? Or 4, he hasn't configured the instance's security group to allow SSH access from his IP? And the answer to this one is 4. He hasn't configured the instance's security group to allow SSH access from his IP. So when you get connection timed out while trying to SSH into an EC2 instance, the answer is almost always that there's something wrong with your security group, so it's trying to make a connection that's never going to get refused, but is never going to get approved either. Question 2. Company A is a small startup that is considering moving to AWS, but they are concerned about pricing. They're interested in using EC2 instances, but due to their volatile daily active user count, they are unsure how much compute power they need and don't want to over-provision. They also need at least one server running at all times. Which EC2 pricing model should they consider? Is it 1, on demand, 2, spot instances, 3, reserved instances, or 4, dedicated hosts? And if you chose number 1, on demand, then you were correct. Let's go over those answers and find out why. Recall that spot instances are instances that you can bid for, so you're not always guaranteed to have a server running at all times. Reserved instances, you're definitely guaranteed to have a server up and running, but you're reserving instances for higher prices initially. Now, it does pan out over the long run because while you pay a lump sum, you are going to pay less overall, say a year from now, than you would have had you used on-demand instances the whole time, but it requires that you know how much compute power you're going to need because you buy all of that instance time right up front. So this isn't right for Company A. And finally, dedicated hosts means you're actually dedicating a physical machine, which means A, you're paying a lot of money up front, and B, you definitely need to know exactly how much compute power you need, or at least you have to have an idea. So this doesn't sound like it's up Company A's alley either. And if that makes sense, then let's move on to the third and final question. Company A currently uses EC2 as their primary host for their web application. They've used EBS on a single EC2 instance as their only storage option until now, but due to increased demand have implemented autoscaling and load balancing using an application load balancer and autoscaling groups. Therefore, they need to implement shared storage. They need any instance created in this new autoscaling setup to have access to the same storage repository. They also need the storage solution to be scalable and as responsive as possible. Which is their best storage option? Is it S3, Glacier, EFS, or Instance Store? And the answer, of course, is 3, EFS. And let's go over those options and find out why. So for S3, you absolutely can use the AWS CLI to download files from S3 and upload files to S3 from an EC2 instance. But the keywords in this question were scalable, so we have to make sure we're choosing the most scalable option there is. Glacier, of course, is absolutely not what we're looking for because this is meant for infrequent access. So of course, if your web application needs immediate access to a file, then Glacier isn't going to be the option for you. If you'll recall, EFS is really easy to mount on multiple EC2 instances. Not only that, but it's very scalable and it's extremely responsive, so this definitely sounds like what we're looking for. And finally, there's Instance Store. So while instances on the same shared host can use common instance store, it's still not the most scalable of these 4 options. So that leaves EFS as the best option. And that wraps it up for the EC2 quiz. So if all of that makes sense, then feel free to move on.